evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the City Council will begin in a few moments. The City Council meets on the first, second, and third Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. and serves as the city's policymaking and legislative body. Each meeting is governed by Robert's Rule of Order unless those guidelines conflict with city ordinance or charter. City Council meetings offer an opportunity for citizens to speak directly to their elected representatives. Those in attendance are invited to address the Council during the public input segment at the beginning of the agenda. At that time, any issue that is not subject to formal action later in the agenda can be addressed. Testimony that concerns a resolution or an ordinance's second reading is only allowed when those specific agenda items are being addressed by the Council. When addressing the Council, citizens should speak directly into the microphones at the podium and state their names for the record after being recognized by the chair. To accommodate and respect all viewpoints, citizen comments are limited by ordinance to no more than 5 minutes each. Comments should be respectful and focused on providing new information that will benefit the Council's deliberative process. By city ordinance, all remarks must be addressed to the City Council as a body and not to any City Council member, including the mayor. The chair reserves the right to limit the number of speakers. City Council meetings are broadcast live on CityLink and online at siouxfalls.org. Information regarding the City Council, its committees, meetings, briefings, and members is available by visiting siouxfalls.org/council or by calling the Council office at 605-367-8085. Thank you for your interest in Sioux Falls City Government.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. It is Tuesday, March 7th. Certainly pleased to have everybody here. We'll start our meeting by introducing you to your City Council.
Council members Rolfing.
Here.
Selberg.
Present.
Starr.
Here.
Staley.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Erpenbach.
Here.
Kylie.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
Councilors, thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it. We do start our meetings with an invocation. And Councilor Michelle Erpenbach is going to lead us in that invocation tonight. What we'd ask is that if you please stand, we'd appreciate that. And then remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor?
Will you bow your head as I pray? Dear wise and loving Creator, first let me say thank you. On behalf of all who are gathered here today, thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance, and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. I pray tonight for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for my colleagues and me on this assembled council. I pray for the agenda set before us today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Sioux Falls. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everybody. And I swear I didn't get in a fight last night at the Summit League game. I had eye surgery this morning, so that's why I look a little funny. But I will do my best to read a proclamation. And Amber, would you mind coming forward, please? Thank you. And Amber, would you just introduce yourself, please, to the people of our city? Thank you.
My name is Amber Lounsbury, and I'm a longtime member of the Sioux Empire Water Festival. And as Mayor Heather's going to read, we're going to have that big festival next week. And it's the 24th annual, so very exciting.
Thank you. Well, Amber, you may have to read this, but I'll give it a shot. The proclamation reads, whereas the Big Sioux Aquifer underlies approximately 1,000 square miles and together with the Big Sioux River provides water to communities in southeastern South Dakota. Whereas providing 2,550 fourth grade children from 117 classes in 49 southeastern South Dakota schools with information about the protection and preservation of water, our most valuable resource, will help make children make educated decisions concerning water in the future. Whereas this education is accomplished with the help of 100 plus staff and volunteers from federal, state, county, and city governments and from private businesses. Whereas, as Amber said, this is the 24th annual event. Whereas the Sioux Falls City Council recognizes the long-term benefits of this type of education and supports such educational efforts. Now, therefore, I'm Mike Huther. I'm the proud mayor of the city that we call Sioux Falls. Do hereby proclaim March 14th and 15th, 2017 as Sioux Empire Water Festival Days in Sioux Falls and the Sioux Empire area. Before we give her a round of applause, Amber, just give us a few more details, please.
Well, we have a very committed and dedicated crew. Some have been on the committee since the very beginning. We are just ever so pleased to have the support of the City of Sioux Falls and many, many other sponsors that provide all the resources that we need to carry on the event. It's a great event. 2 days, schools come from all over the southeast area, and the kids get to learn everything about water, from aquifers to drought, to anything else. So it's a really good event, and we're just pleased to have the continued sponsorship. And we're really looking forward actually to next year, which will be our 25th anniversary, and we're looking to shake things up a bit and bring some more excitement into our program. So.
Council, thank you very much for that opportunity. We'll now move to our consent agenda. Any motions or changes to that, Council?
Move approval.
Second.
Council Chair Rolfing has made a motion to approve our consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Selberg. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Councilors, that is passed 8-0. Our regular agenda tonight, any motions, changes to that?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilors, thank you. That was Councilor Erickson made a motion to approve that agenda, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Councilors, that is also passed 8-0. Again, folks, welcome to the City Council meeting. We're pleased to have you here. We know that there's some agenda items that many of you want to talk about later on. We appreciate that. But if there's any other topics that you're intrigued about, that you'd like to engage the council on, we just ask you to come forward, introduce yourself to the people of our city, and if you can keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, the council would appreciate that. Welcome.
Bruce Daniels in Sioux Falls. I'm going to give some handouts to Jim or somebody here to give to each of you that ask these. These are a few contract questions that there's a bunch here for the public, so they can have some. That we're getting ready to build a parking ramp, and we've got a lot of questions, and people have been asking me questions, so I thought I'd throw a few of them out here. And first off, last Friday there was a March 2017 Inside Town Hall video on the City of Sioux Falls YouTube channel. It disappeared. The question is, what has happened to the 1,000 or so videos the IT Media Services Department has had up on the free for all to see YouTube service? They're gone. The oldest Meet the Council is one from Teresa in June. What happened to all the other years of conversation that have been out there? All the Ask the Mayor sessions, et cetera. Why would these videos the citizens of Sioux Falls have bought and paid for be deleted from our access? Are we asking too much? Are we asking too many questions? Have we caught too many inconsistent stories? May I ask a few more questions before we move on? It appears careless, bad materials or shoddy work has caused city water mains and water pipes to blow up around Sioux Falls the last few years. Just go down to Cliff Avenue at the railroad tracks and see what I showed you back at Christmas time. You know, then we come back to, you know, what are building permits for? Moments ago, before I came in here, there was a blurb going across the city link in the outer room that was talking about all the wonderful things about building permits. And we begin to ask the questions, you know, what are the building permits good for? If you have a building permit, does it allow you to do what you want in any way you want? What does being a commercial contractor allow you to do? If somebody goes into a building code enforcement office and files a concern, why does no one follow up? If a building falls down, are we allowed to ask why? Should we care? Do building and code enforcement personnel only show up to arrest somebody for having a pile of shingles in the wrong spot? Where were the engineered drawings and permits to allow a load-bearing wall to be taken out? If there's a death, shouldn't someone from the county investigate? Isn't it strange? There's been no grand jury convened to independently find out why a tragedy happened. It's all over the country. You have an investigation. The 2016 Copper Lounge collapse in downtown Sioux Falls leaves the public with so many questions. Scott Erisman asked many during the Sioux Falls City Council public input on the 14th of February. Has anybody asked any of the questions so we get answers? So now we ask, why do we need a new parking ramp so badly when the current ones are so empty? We will be asking many more of these questions in the coming days and weeks. Why shouldn't we? What is this council doing about investigating these problems? So we ask this body one more time to help us get answers to boomtown problems before a boomtown goes bust. When you're done thinking about these questions, you and the citizens of Sioux Falls need to write down questions. When you're done, maybe the people of Sioux Falls need to send them to the Minnehaha County State's Attorney. We citizens elected him to his office to do a job of convening grand juries to ferret out these very issues and for answers. There appears to be problems our town needs help with. Maybe the state's attorney can help us get answers. I'm going to leave a few of these over here on the table. If anybody wants them, they can have them. I hope everybody got enough of them. So thank you.
Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity get to address the council and the mayor. My name is Jeff Davis. I'm a resident in Wayne Township. We're the subject of possible annexation, voluntary, involuntary. We're not sure how that's going to shake down. And I wanted to give you a little description. In Wayne Township, I've lived there for about 12 years, and boy, we've had to fight for everything that ever got done over there. We've had to sue the township for snow removal and a little tiny bit of gravel, and all we've gotten since then is minimal service, and that's on us for being in the township. We've been in a lot of conversation with the engineering department and this and that about negotiating an annexation, and there's a number of things that I think that need to be reviewed at the top level because the cost, our neighborhood is made up of people, a number of people on fixed incomes, number of young people raising a number of kids. I'm happy, I'm in the middle-aged part, I don't have a problem with that, but and where it's going is when you start talking about somebody on fixed income that's going to pay $300 a month or $330 a month for 20 years, it occurs to me that we need to review why we're in the position that we're in. During the development years around us, the Daniels addition was put in there, fell on hard times. It can happen to anybody. Decisions had to be made and shortcuts had to be taken, and I'm sure engineering changes. No storm sewers between 48th and 42nd Street on Klein Avenue. The Klein Avenue between 42nd and 41st Street is a disaster because obviously if there was a traffic impact study, it was incorrect. Klein Avenue is almost as busy as the TLS Road, maybe more. At any rate, what I'm asking you to do, or what I'm here for, is I understand that there's been a task force formed to review annexations and what those annexations mean to the residents. And I respectfully ask that someone from Wayne Township be on that task force. We're not adverse. We support the city. Despite the fact that we don't live in the city, all of our sales tax money is spent in Sioux Falls. You know, we buy everything in Sioux Falls. We pay for fire protection. So we're not, we want to dispel some of the comments and the feelings that we're freeloaders, that we're looking for something for nothing. We're not looking for anything different than anybody else enjoys from a fair and a friendly annexation. We think annexation, in most cases, should be celebrated. You become a part of the community officially, and we don't want to spoil that. On the other hand, we don't want to have the burden of the mess left behind from the developments around us become a burden on the backs of the elderly or the young people trying to raise foster parents with 6 kids that they're taking care of for the county and for the state and the city. We think that we deserve a little more than that. And so we're asking for nothing less than consideration at the highest level on the terms of the possible annexation and the possibilities. The sewer system, you basically get the use of it without it because of the poor drainage that you created. Not what you created, I'm sorry, but what was created during the Daniels development. Excess pumping charges, late charges that have been put on the sewer district there. We need to have the city help us with an audit of our sewer district, an official audit. We've asked for a number of documents, and the city's reluctant to give those to us because they've been given to the sewer district. So there's a number of things that we need your help with, Mr. Mayor, and the council's help to get to the bottom of these things and come to a fair and equitable annexation of Wayne Township residents. There's 72 residents that are trying, the cost recovery is almost $4 million. That's a lot of money. $320 a month for 20 years, 5% interest is a lot of money. And tonight I'm here to say that it needs to become a topic of conversation in the council and in your office and engineering. Talks need to be reopened with engineering, and a more meaningful and equitable solution I'm sure will come forward, because that's the nature of Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Appreciate that. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. I actually didn't know what Bruce was going to talk about tonight, but I'm not going to repeat some of the things he said, but it's a similar topic. On Friday afternoon, I went to the city YouTube page and I found a March version of Inside Town Hall, and when I first started watching it, it's like, oh, it's a little bit longer than normal. It's 44 minutes long. One of the counselors was hosting chief of police, the head of 911, and the fire department chief, and they talked about their work and cooperation. Well, after about 30 minutes, the show ended, and for 14 minutes, there was footage of the building collapse. And I could tell from watching the video that they were shooting video from the top of, I think, Coffea, and it looked like some of the video was either shot with drone or on the fire truck ladders, and there were several breaks in the video, so that told me that this whole thing was being filmed. They showed where they marked the cracks on the paved building. They showed where they put the crane up against the building. They showed when they pulled the apartment dweller out of the wreckage, rescuing the dog, dragging the car away. And then the next day it disappeared. No video. Well, I think it's great that it was recorded. I thought to myself, wow, they had an entire film crew out there for over 12 hours filming this entire thing. And then they take this footage, and what are they going to use this footage for? Well, they're not using it for an investigation. Did they turn it over to insurance companies? Did they turn it over to OSHA? Taxpayers spent this money filming this rescue effort. The only thing I could think of was a propaganda, because we put up a 14-minute video showing us how great of a job we did. We have a real issue, and then we take the video down and nobody knows where it's at, just whoop in the air. So what was the video shot for? I don't know. We didn't call it, we didn't hand it over to DCI, we didn't hand it over to grand jury, we didn't hand it over to the state's attorney. We have a real issue of transparency. It's a #1 issue in this city government right now. And it'll be a huge issue in the next election, and I can guarantee you every single council candidate and mayor candidate that runs will be talking about it. We used to record the fiscal meetings. Well, the past 2 fiscal meetings, we decided we're not going to record them anymore. Don't know why. We don't want to record the Parks Board meetings. Well, I listened to one of the Parks Board meeting audios from, I believe, November, and for about 10 minutes there was a bash session by the director of the parks on the media and how horrible the media was and how they lie and they misinformation and how they treat us. And I could see why they don't want their meetings recorded, because they sit there and talk trash. Why are we so scared of transparency? I don't understand it. This country's been around for over 200 years, and for some reason, 2017 in Sioux Falls, gosh darn it, we're not going to put up with transparency. We're going to try to be as closed government and anti-transparent as possible. We're going to veto it. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure the citizens don't know what's going on. And on top of that, we're going to spend their money doing recordings, but not sharing them with anybody. Why? I think the council should take a bold step. If we don't want to have a transparent government, when the 2017 budget comes rolling around, I suggest that you eliminate the CityLink department, lay them all off, close the department. We don't need it anymore. Why are the taxpayers wasting their money on this department if we're not getting any clear and transparent information out of it? It's a waste of money. Go spend it on the streets. It'd be better spent. At least we know when a pothole gets filled. Thank you.
Folks, did anybody else want to engage? Welcome. Good to have you here.
Welcome to the mayor, fellow council members. I am Audrey Christensen of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I've been a resident of Sioux Falls for 60 years.
Ma'am, could you just repeat your name, please?
Audrey Christensen.
Audrey, thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Christensen, thank you.
And I am the official city patrol for potholes on the east side of Sioux Falls. And I am the second person to be the city official of cleaning up debris around houses that are skid row. Not really skid row, but they have a building permit in their window, but you got a trailer house and crap all over the place. And another place I used to live next door to, that looks like Grandma's ceramic yard, and he builds this great big garage on the East 12th Street. I called within 2 weeks that I called, and I went back, and both places were literally cleaned up. So the system does count when the senior citizens and members of the Sioux Falls call and report this crap that's going on around the city. And my nephew, he goes every morning for a walk, and he takes a bag with him, and he's picked up litters of papers blown all over. And yesterday and today, I got a half a bag of just, I don't know where these papers come from, but bingo, all of a sudden they're in my front yard and my backyard. But anyway, the reason I'm here is I'm calling in regard to the state wrestling tournament, which was 10 days ago, Friday and Saturday. And I went for the reason for my nephew's son. He was in the state championship wrestling at 285 pounds. He got second place, but we must do something about this parking out there. It's a disaster. I understand there was supposed to be shuttle service. Well, I didn't see a shuttle, but thank goodness to the patrol that was directing traffic in and out. They did an excellent job. My son and I had to park way over by Baumgartner's, and my niece parked by Wild Wings. Well, that's a good 20-minute walk.
Oh, my God.
So please, please consider doing something about this parking out the arena. What if there would have been a Canaries game? And maybe that night, I'm not sure, there was a Augie basketball game. So anyway, oh yeah, and then the home show was on besides. So it wasn't just the state wrestling match, which accommodated over 8,000 people on Friday and over 10,000 on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. each day. And I was not in favor of the arena when it was talked about building. I thought, that's a waste of money. They can use the arena they have. But after being in that big arena for the state wrestling match, I'm 100% for it, but please do something about the parking. That's #1 priority in Sioux Falls. If you want to have all these events, we have to provide parking, or people are not going to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Some of you might recall me from last week, not last week, 2 weeks ago. Mayor Euther was not here to witness my presentation, but I brought to the attention of the council at that time. My name is Stephen Ciano, I'm sorry. I get my mail at the banquet. I am a homeless, disabled, blacklisted veteran. Because the nature of my disability, my primary disability, involves misconduct in the military, which caused it, and they've been covering it up. Everyone and their uncle has been covering it up ever since, and the VA has not been available. They have been actually threatening. They took action as was expected to cause my death years ago through causing me financial destruction and the loss of my apartment at the time, and I've been living with somebody else ever since. I've been looking to Falls Community Health and the city attorney for assistance in the matter for years, and this has recently been renewed, and I have been refused the help that I need, which includes primarily to get the records which show my primary disability to be PTSD, which has been suppressed and covered up with a false claim of diagnosis that I am suddenly psychotic, which there is no evidence to and has been refuted even by the VA's own psychiatrist, and yet this continues to be ignored. I want the records gotten. I want the help that I need. I have some serious physical ailments consequent to my emotional and social disability. By the way, I do also have a high degree of logical and rule subtype Asperger's, and I was quite advanced when I joined the military in '76, and this didn't matter until, well, at the time that I became disabled in March of '78. I did just send an email out, 3 pages, to the city council. Now, I did under city council at siouxfalls.org. I don't know if that gets to the mayor. If not, then perhaps somebody else could share with you, or I could as well share with you. And I also sent copies this time to my counselor, who had actually advocated on my behalf in light of the threat to my life, and was thus attacked as well with a false report. This is their MO. And I sent copies to the director, the present director of the regional office of the VA and the hospital of the VA. Their predecessors having been involved in the cover-up of such crimes. The homeless program, arguably true to its name, was integral in my being forced out of my apartment, and somebody ought to be prosecuting this. I understand you're a legislative body essentially, but when it comes down to the city attorney and Falls Community Health not doing the basics as I perceive as being appropriate in obtaining records and arranging legal assistance and housing and whatever other needs I have expressed and are contained in the letter, I think I got them in the letter. Then, if I'm mistaken, that cases of discrimination, which is what it amounts to based upon my beliefs and my disability, the nature of my disability, and making reasonable accommodations, I thought this was the purview of the city attorney. If I'm wrong, please let me know. So I do offer this to you, but it's already been sent via email to the council, and I hope that you will review it, and I welcome you getting back to me further. I want to say that I feel threatened by the initial response dismissing my report of a life-threatening assault on me as a mere mention of access involving the city and the VA. It's a lot more than that. It is a threat to my life as a disabled, blacklisted veteran. And this is cultural. I've been in touch with Washington, D.C. Thank you.
And thank you for your service, sir. We appreciate it. Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council?
Greetings, elected representatives, and greetings, citizens. As you can tell, my name is David Zokaitis, and I'm here to talk about zoning and aesthetics. I like to make the world pretty when I can. Now, when we have zoning, we've got a variety of purposes that are worth describing briefly. One of the goals is to group similar land uses and put them all together, and we need to protect property values. People put a lot of money into the property. It's good to make sure that nothing bad happens to that. We want to keep neighbors happy. Pretty houses all go together, and the stuff we don't want goes somewhere else. That's what zoning is all about. There's a trend that goes around the world. It's mass production, basically. You get one good design, and you keep on doing it. Well, if you do that with housing, I don't really think it's a very good idea. You end up with tract housing. And I think that if we have any of that, we should make sure we don't get any more. And it could be, if you tweak your zoning laws a little bit and require some modest changes in your facade, nominal increase in cost to the developer, you could eliminate things like this. They had one pretty plan and made too many of them all in a row, and it would be better if we don't have that in Sioux Falls. Now, there was another issue that's kind of related, but I'll just kind of glue it in instead of waiting for it later in the agenda. When you have houses and apartment buildings, some people say it's okay to put them together next to each other. The city zoning board says it's okay. Last meeting, there were some homeowners that says this scheme is really bad for property values. And some proponents said, no, it's not an issue. Well, what we should do is get some data. I'm a great fan of data. Scientist, engineer, give me data. Database administrator, too. All right, so if you have a single-family house and you put it next to a small, cute apartment building, what happens to the property values on that pretty house? And then if you put that single-family house next to a big, pretty apartment building, does something else happen? And the third classification is what happens when it's next to a big, ugly apartment building. We need some data. What happens to the property values? There was a scant mention of data on the last meeting, but it was insufficient. We need more data. So I'd like to recommend that the city zoning board get some data on these 3 different classifications, and then to delay that cantankerous zoning item until you have some data so that you can make a more informed decision. Short presentation tonight. I'd like to close it by saying, good evening, everybody. Try to be nice and enjoy life. This is a local picture. It looks like the Badlands, but it's local. And with that, good evening.
Thank you, David. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council?
Sioux Sioux Falls. Last year, we had that gender identity and our expression ordinance come up that we was pushing for with the advocates here. And the city attorney sat down there, and Marty Jackley had said that it would not have hindered the lawsuit, because I got the same email. So Trump did the executive order on it, and the state put out of the lawsuit. So since the city attorney wanted to bring this bogus nonsense not professional information last year to council that was rejected. I'm asking that the city council bring it back to the table for gender identity and or gender expression ordinance as well as sexual orientation. I called the city attorney's office and spoke with Corinne Moran and the city attorney, and I'm thinking that it's up to council members to come up with this ordinance. First off, the city council did not start the fight to begin with. As a transgender myself, what the city attorney did was a slap in the transgenderism space here.
Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Keep your comments generic. You don't have to attack one certain individual or make your comments towards one individual. If you have comments as a whole, continue.
So this is the whole that I'm going to do right now. In 2018, we need a mayor that will clean house with the city attorney's office, clean house with the police department, and clean house with the fire department that don't believe in LGBT training. We need transparency back into the city, and we need a city attorney's office with attorneys that will represent the city the best way that they can and the LGBT community without doing it bogusly like they did last year. Thank you so much for your time.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak to the council? Item 23.
Item 23 is a special one-day malt beverage license for Siouxland Heritage Museums, the Old Courthouse Museum, to be operated at 200 West 6th Street for a St. Patrick's Day family dance on March 17th, 2017.
David.
This is a special one day that meets all the statutory requirements for a dance I understand has been held for many years.
Thank you, David.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Erickson, thank you for that. Councilor Bach, thank you as well for seconding that. There's no discussion. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson. Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0, Council. Thank you. Item 24.
Item 24 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 4030 South Grange Avenue from the C3 Commercial Community District to the C4 Commercial Regional District, petition number 6216, 2017, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Jeffrey Schmidt representing planning staff on this item and other items this evening. This first item is a rezoning from C3 to C4 commercial development on the southwest part of Sioux Falls. It's the existing Vernite site, and as you can see, they're just going to move forward to expand to a larger commercial use to C4, and the expansion is going to be allowing for more parking on their use for their auto dealership and to add another building to expand their brand at this site. It's a 6-acre site. Planning Commission recommended approval.
Jeffrey, thank you. Folks, this is a second reading, so you do have the opportunity to engage the council on this topic. Would anybody want to do that? Very good. Thank you. Councilors?
Move to approve. Neitzert.
Second.
Councilor Neitzert's made a motion to approve this second reading. Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Vice Chair Kiley. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item 25.
Item 25 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property at 1500 and 1504 North Cliff Avenue from the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District to the I-1 Light Industrial District, petition number 6183, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
Jeffrey?
This is a relatively small site on the northeast part of town. It's Zone C2. The owner and the applicant are the same, and it's the C2 next to I-1 at Cliff Avenue and Rice Street. The applicant would like to expand to I-1, which is also what's adjacent to his property, I-1. What he'd propose to do is be able to do storage of some of the uses that he already has up there and be some truck storage. He would have a 30-foot buffer yard to the east, and that he would have to do. These buffer yards would have berms and landscaping standards that he'd have to meet as a requirement of the zoning ordinance.
Jeffrey, thank you. Folks, again, second reading. Any comments from the audience? Thank you. Councilors?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Erickson has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Chair Rolfing. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Council, thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 26, please.
Item 26 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property at 1200 East 3rd Street from the S1 General Institutional District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District, petition number 5397, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
Jeffrey?
This is a 2-acre site on North Cliff Avenue and 3rd Street. It's the old Franklin School, the Foss Alternative School that's been vacant for a while. This 2-acre site is being rezoned from S1, which is an institutional school site, to C2 commercial site. The commercial site would also be used as an office site. The parking would be on the north as well as the south, so they're going to expand their parking. They would meet their parking requirements. They'd have 82 parking spaces on the site. It's a 2-story building, and again, retail on the ground floor and office on the second floor. At both meetings for Planning Commission and City Council, we've had one neighborhood representative coming to ask us about some issues. I pulled this down off of Google, or Bing does it, one of the others, but you can see their questions were really in regards to the 2-acre or the 2-story building has a traffic signal at Cliff and 3rd. It's not heavily used now because there's not a lot of traffic coming in off of 3rd. The predominant movement's on Cliff. So they wanted to know about the traffic on 3rd and the placement of this bus stop on the northeast corner. You can see it also on their diagram for the site plan. So from that standpoint, we did reach out to Public Works Traffic Engineering, and they will continue to monitor both. At this point, even in this image, you can see there's not a lot of traffic on 3rd. So in the long term, if there's not traffic on 3rd, there's a warrant where they would not need the traffic to be stopping at 3rd coming onto Cliff, and they may, again, that's a big may, if it's not being needed there, they turn it to a stop sign so people could actually get easier onto and off of Cliff Avenue. So that's how they've kind of looked at addressing that. But otherwise, it's office on the second floor and commercial on the main floor.
Jeff, thank you. Folks, again, second reading. Anybody interested in commenting on this topic? Welcome.
Yeah, could you put that picture of the school in the corner? That one. Some members of the neighborhood asked me, Bruce Danielson, they asked me to come up. There was an emergency and with Tim Stanga, and he asked me to come up and just remind everybody. And Jeff just said something here that it's very disingenuous. You look at that photograph. We don't know what time of the day that was. We don't know anything about that day. It could be a Sunday. You know, if you ever follow the Google cars and have anything to do with them, they will often find a time on a busy street so that they get as few public images as possible, the fewest number of license plates, They don't want to catch people. And so they will go in and they will find the time period where these types of images work. So to be saying that there isn't traffic on 3rd Street without a traffic study is not being truthful. And that's a serious problem, and that's what Tim keeps coming back with. And nobody seems to be able to answer that question about all the things that are going to happen there. We talk about, I personally would love to see this building being used, but there's some issues here that there's been very little ability for public input. Most of the people that have anything to do with this, if you go around the properties, there are very few homeowners that are directly in that zone that is the problem. It's the wider neighborhood and the way the people are using. Another question was truck traffic on Sherman. Sherman is a narrow little street that has been jammed with cars in the past, and so there's a concern about where are these trucks going to be unloading when they come into this to restock the stores. And we're talking semis and so on. And if you've got a parking lot there and the parking lot is jammed full, how's a semi going to back up to the door to unload? So where are these grocery trucks going to be unloading but blocking the traffic for those people that live on Sherman? So parking on the streets was bad enough when it was a school. Now there may be dozens more cars being parked on the street, and nobody's even talking about any of this. I know the neighborhood would like to see something happen with this building, but nobody's addressing the concerns that they seem to be having. So thank you.
Folks, anybody else want to engage the council on this topic? Councilors? Councilor Neitzer.
Mr. Schmidt, could you tell me can you unload and unload on a street, or do you have to do it off street?
You cannot park and load and unload on a street like that from a commercial standpoint. On a local street, you could, where you'd be a homeowner, but on a commercial site like this, you would have to come into the commercial parking lot to load and unload.
So if that happens, it's a violation.
Correct.
That can be enforced.
Yes.
Okay. Could I just make another comment?
Please, you bet.
I did get contacted by the same citizen, and I will tell you, looking into this, they've provided the same amount of parking that everybody else has to provide. I mean, if I'm a grocery store, I can provide all my parking, and somebody could conceivably park on the street. It could happen. I mean, it could happen. But they provide the parking that they need. If they violate the square footage requirement, for example, if they want to build, if they go get a building permit, they're going to have to provide more parking. If they just build without asking, that's a building violation, and it's a zoning violation. There's ways to enforce that. There was some concern that more would be finished in the future. So they meet all the requirements, and it's a great redevelopment, and I just don't see a problem. And I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Councilor.
Second, Urbanbach.
Thank you, Councilor Mbach. Yes, Councilor Staley.
I have a question, Jeff, and maybe you're not, maybe you can't answer it, but let's say after this gets developed and is off and running, how hard is it to go back and work with the traffic situation then? I mean, these things could still be remedied, right?
They will continue to monitor and looking at it, because right now, they are monitoring the traffic on 3rd now, and there's not a lot of traffic, as I tried to say, but I did misstate it. But I was trying to state what Public Works was saying. There's currently not traffic on 3rd through their traffic reviews, but they will monitor it as it opens and look at it. If there's not a warrant, if it's not generating enough traffic, then they're trying to help the citizens be able to get out, and they'll continue to look at the traffic issues on 3rd.
So we can assure these residents that we're going to, yeah.
They'll do that at all businesses and all locations in the city of Sioux Falls.
Councilor Starr.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Jeff, if you don't mind, and maybe this is more geared towards the applicant, but when I look at the photo and the parking areas, there's only, did it show just one? Can you bring that back up for me? Thank you. I'm sorry, my screen's a little bit different.
Yep.
We just got to wait for Tony to catch up downstairs.
There's parking to the north and to the south.
Right, but my question is, if you had a semi delivering on a regular basis, whether it's a grocery store or UPS or whatever, I'm only am I looking at this wrong? I'm seeing one place from the east to get into the parking lot, but to turn a semi around, or I guess what is the plan for loading and unloading? Would the applicant is here, or could they answer how that happens?
Jeffrey is the applicant here. Welcome. The question was if they're had to bring something in, pretty substantial size, whether it be a semi or small or large truck, how would they load and unload, and where would they do that?
I'm Mike Hauk. I'm representing the applicant here. And I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I'm filling in for Sam Assam, who's out of town. And my understanding was that this has all been kind of looked at and worked out. I know that the parking was a concern previously in the loading and unloading, and a large part of it probably depends on the tenants and what types of stores they are and what they might have. In terms of the access, perhaps Mr. Sadat can address kind of what the plan there is.
Carter Sadat, City of Sioux Falls. Well, we have a parking in the back. We can access from there, and it's going to be small stores. I don't believe we're going to have a very huge amount of semi or big trucks going to come here, normal trucks, and we have access from the back. I think like every another store in the City of Sioux Falls, I think has got enough parking and been steady money time, and with the city requirement was that, and we have all the parking ready, and I think that's all I can say.
That's right. The question that Councilor Starr had was if there would be a larger truck that you had to load or unload, where would you do it at?
That's in the back parking lot in the back of the school.
And Jeff, could you point that out, or so that the people of Sioux Falls or Councilor Starr could see that?
We're going to be to the south.
There's one way in.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Sorry, Mayor.
It's all right.
We're still 10 minutes from tip-off. We're okay.
Keeps clicking. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
So now my mouse just left again. So they'd be able to come from the south on that east entry and then loading and loading on that southeast area so that they could pull straight through and then heading back out into Third as they just, as he was stating. So if they came in on Sherman, then they'd come in on Third. That's what he was saying. On the south side, the back.
Okay. Councilor Starr, does that help you at all?
I made it clear as mud, but I'm just having a hard time visualizing how a semi or a large truck would get into the parking lot turn.
It sounds like they're not going to turn. They're just going to go in,
And out.
unload, and then go out.
That answers.
Does that sound fair?
That's where I'm headed. So
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Councilor Starr.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Buck.
I wonder if it's the definition of back. We're all used to the front door of Franklin Elementary being on the south side of the building. Counselor Starr, the back side of the building is the north parking lot, right? What you're saying now is that that will be the new front side of the building, the main parking lot on the north side. The south side will be the back, and that's the loading and unloading zone, that drive-through. Gotcha. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct.
Good, thank you.
Well, very good. We do have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 27.
Item 27 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning properties south of West 5th Street, west of North Valley View Road, and east of North La Mesa Drive from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban District, petition number 6214, 2017, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
On item number 28, it's an 8-acre site in the northwest part of town.
27, Jeff?
27,
Yes,
excuse
sir.
me, Mayor.
It's okay, thank you.
The applicant is Kelly Nielsen. It's at 5th and Valley View, and the applicant is proposing to rezone from RS to RD. He has 16 lots of fourplexes, And it's currently in between manufactured home on the south and RS to the north. There's one row of RS single family, and he currently has this row of single family RS lots that he wants to bring in for RD twin home townhomes.
Jeff, thank you. Folks, anybody want to engage the council on this topic? Councilors?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second.
Salberg.
Councilor Chair Rolfing has made that motion, and it was seconded by Councilor, was it Staley or Erickson? Staley, Councilor Staley. Is there any discussion, folks? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item 28.
Item 28 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 215 East 14th Street from the RT2 Townhome Residential Traditional District to the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density District, petition number 6129-2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
Thank you on this one. It's in the central part of Sioux Falls. It's on the southwest corner of 14th and 2nd. 14th is the arterial street, 2nd's the collector street. It's an RT2 single family that's being rezoned. There's currently 2 buildings on this structure. On this lot, they're gonna remove one of the structures and leave the other one. They're rezoning to RA2 and keeping the RA2 adjacent to the single family to the south. So as their site plan shows, they're going to keep on the southeast corner the existing 2-story building, and they're going to build one 3-story 32-unit apartment building adjacent to the single family along this collector street. They would have to be also a 15-foot buffer yard on the south side before they get to the remaining existing single family.
Thanks, Jeff. Folks, anybody want to engage the council on this topic? Councilors?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Kylie.
Council Chair Rolfing has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Vice Chair Kylie and Councilor Erpenbach.
Just clarification for me, Mr. Schmidt. If you could put that drawing back up. Sorry.
That's all right.
Look at that. First of all, you may have misspoken. I just want to make sure. The drawing says 22-unit apartment building.
And I was reading 32.
Okay.
That's
all
correct.
Right.
It is a 22-unit apartment building, 3 stories.
You're going to remove a single-family home that is on 14th and...
Second.
First.
First to the west, second to the east, correct.
Yep. And then the building that is staying and has just the buffer yard between it and the new apartment building, that's not a single-family home, that's like a duplex.
That's a duplex.
Okay, and then just for clarification, to the south of that duplex then, at the bottom of this picture, what is that? Is that a home, a single-family home, or is that another apartment building?
That is a single-family home to the south.
Quite a larger one, right? And the apartment, and you can see the garage in the back if you're looking at the
alley fed.
Right.
And that's why First is really over.
Right. Yep. Got it. Okay. Just wanted to clarify how that development is sitting next to other properties. So thank you very much.
It's a 22-unit apartment building, not a 32. I was wrong.
And it's 3 stories.
Correct.
Interesting. Good. Thank you.
A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item 29.
Item 29 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 4209 West 85th Street from the AG Agricultural District to the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density District, petition number 5996-2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls.
Jeff?
This is a 5-acre site at 85th and Brett. Last 2 weeks ago when I did first reading, I had added some more slides from Planning Commission. I still have the additional slides at this one, so I'll go through at second reading the additional slides. It is to the south of 85th Street, which is the arterial, and Brett, which is the collector street. It's ag, and they're proposing to take this vacant site and rezone it to RA2 which would be apartments adjacent to the single family to the south along 86th Street. They would want to build three-story buildings with 32 units each, and then the condition that Planning Commission recommended was a 40-foot buffer on the south side. When it went after Planning Commission, City Council remanded it back, and we were asked to review the site and consider the setbacks, which we did, and that's where we, as Planning Commission, recommended the 40-foot buffer yard on the south side. The issue continues to be, not only here but elsewhere, apartments next to single family. Staff's comment is this is not unique just to 85th and Brett, but there are numerous locations throughout Sioux Falls where we have apartments and single family. Shape Places is our comprehensive plan. That's what was adopted by council back in 2010. And with that, they were talking about in the comprehensive plan that really mitigation factors are what needed to be addressed when you looked at these locations. In the comprehensive plan is really on the top, and then I tried to put the adjacent or accompanying ordinances on the bottom. So the comprehensive plan for multifamily talks about encouraging multifamily buildings to be designed to reduce scale and massing, and how do you do that is try to break up the pitches and the depths of these buildings. The ordinance talks about the heights. RA2 is 3 stories and no more than 45 feet, and RS limits the height to 35 feet, as does an RD. In the comprehensive plan, we talk about buffers, and they require landscaping buffers to help reduce the conflicts. In the ordinance, it talks about setbacks and buffer yards. For this type of use, there's a 10-foot side and rear yard requirement, and for this, a level B buffer yard would be required, which is a 15-foot buffer yard. In the comprehensive plan, it talks about requiring higher intensity uses to shed the light away. In the zoning ordinance, the requirement is that the heights of the lights have to be limited, and we would not allow light trespassing to be on a site. You can't trespass your light across, as well as the screening ordinance says that screening of parking lots have to be addressed with either shrubs, fencing, or some type of berming. One of the issues that's been addressed multiple times with a lot of our land uses is how does the traffic impact the adjacent land uses and the properties. I sketched this out. This is the area of 85th and Brett. The orange polygon is the subject site. And whether you're in the south side of town like this one, the predominant movement is to the north and east to the employment centers. So you would be going north and east to get into town or into employment, or really to the school is directly to the north. So you would go by the green movement to go that way. You just generally wouldn't go to the south. You could go to the south. We couldn't prohibit that, but it's an out-of-the-way movement to go to the south and go that way, as you can see, and you can make your own judgment on that. Now, factually, the traffic volumes, the engineering design standards, we don't have standards for what a local street, such as 86th Street, should have, but on Brett, a collector street, the vehicle traffic should have approximately 5,000 vehicles a day on the collector street. That's the volume you should have. That's what we build these roads to. And an arterial street such as 85th Street should have 25,000 vehicles a day. That's what the traffic should be. Currently on 85th Street, there's 1,000 vehicles a day. So we would expect a significant amount of traffic out in this area. Drainage is also an issue. The nice thing about this site is it does drain currently from 86th Street down to 85th Street from the south to the north. There's approximately a 10 to 14 foot drop from that area. So the natural drainage is away from the single family, so that really helps. The other thing that I noted in our review is the benefit of having apartments is they don't have basements. They're slab on grade, whereas if you had twin homes or single family, you're going to have basements here, which changes the drainage and the grades. And if anybody that has a home, you understand as soon as you start putting basements in, that really changes how the drainage takes place on a site. The standards and the requirements on any of the setbacks and buffer yards, this is the subject property again. You have to have a 25-foot front yard setback, and then we are looking at a 40-foot setback on the south side. They're currently showing a 35-foot on the east, but that's not required on the east. The only requirement that Planning Commission put was the 40-foot on the south. In consistency or comparison, a single family to a single family is shown up there, what they would be if they were twin homes to single family in the south, or, as I've stated already, what an apartment complex requirements would be. And again, what a buffer yard would be, if you wanted to look at those. We generally discuss here at this time amongst staff what compatibilities there are. In the comprehensive plan, back in 2010, we put in these compatibility charts. It is a 3. 1 is the best, or 5's the best, 1's the worst, so it's right in the middle. And what it talks about is there could be a potential for incompatibility with single family to apartments, but what it says is that you can address these things. Traffic, parking, and other external effects should be directed away from the lower intensity districts. Landscaping, buffer yard screening, and compatible height and scale methods should be employed to minimize those effects. And then therefore, the flip side is if they don't do those, then there is real incompatibility. At Planning Commission and City Council, they kind of asked, well, where are these other examples? I didn't go on our GIS layers, but I went out to, as Bruce has mentioned and others tonight, you can just pull up on Google Map or Bing, anybody can, and you can look at them, but we have sites throughout City of Sioux Falls where you have 2- and 3-story apartment complexes directly adjacent to single family, even ones very close to the subject property, and trying to give people examples of where they're at. This is pretty typical to how development gets taken in Sioux Falls. And lastly, I think it's very a good point to always bring up, this is the rezoning of land. We're rezoning it from ag to RA, that's the request, but we always are able to come back with zoning requirements because it's what they have to build to. We always will regulate them to lighting, signage, landscaping, parking, all these things on any of these examples tonight will be regulated by the zoning ordinance.
Jeff, thank you. Folks, this is a second reading, and we know that there's a number of folks here that are here to at least witness this, but also to speak to the council about this topic as well, and we certainly welcome that. Also, I'm fully aware that there's been a lot of good discussion on this topic already, and I can guarantee you that the council has listened to the comments. They take them very, very seriously, and certainly are willing to listen to additional comments. If you want to speak to this item tonight, just come forward. Really the same rules. Introduce yourself to the people. Keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Would ask one thing, though. Rather than coming up and saying the same thing in a repetitive way, if you can find other things that would maybe even bring more light to the subject, whether you're for it or against it, that would certainly help as well. So again, welcome. Good to have you here. Please just come forward. Welcome, sir.
All right, thank you. Mayor Huther, members of the council, my name is Damian Grebel. I'm with Earhart Griffin and Associates, 300 North Dakota Avenue, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm here to speak on the 85th and Brett rezoning issue, the rezoning application. Again, on this rezoning application, planning staff has always recommended approval. On our first hearing through planning, it was on the consent agenda, and then again, it was sent to city council. We were sent with a level 3 compatibility, and as Jeff said, Shape Sioux Falls has stated that the potential conflicts can be remedied or minimized through the project design in the use of buffer yards, landscaping, screening, compatible height and scale methods of the building, and parking and traffic and other external effects directed away from lower intensity districts. And I'm here to show you how our site will meet or achieve these goals. Again, from the City of Sioux Falls zoning ordinance, where we get our level B buffer yard is from the top row. We're adjacent to single family on the south side of our project, and we're also adjacent to single family on the east side. It's the current use of the property, so we have to go to the least dense use, and so that puts us in for an MD2 form as a level B buffer yard. Again, from the city zoning ordinance, the level B buffer yard requires a minimum of a 15-foot setback, 2-foot high berm or a 4-foot high fence. There's also units, 30 units of landscaping for each 100 lineal feet of the property line. We will not be encroaching into our buffer yard requirements. As you read down again, it also states, as we have to the north, an arterial right-of-way. So the arterial right-of-way satisfies the entire transition or the buffer yard for the north side of our site. It also states, number 7 there, that when a fence, wall, or hedge is required, must be character necessary for screening of a parking lot from any adjacent residential uses. So again, on our site plan, we are providing a 40-foot buffer yard to the south. We are providing the minimum 15-foot buffer yard to the east, and Brett Avenue and 85th Street will have your standard bulk regulation setback requirements. What we have here on the top is a picture of our site plan. What we will provide, instead of the berm or the 4-foot high fence, we'll provide a 6-foot high opaque fence, and we will provide that on, if you're turned to the side here, north is to the left. On our south side, we'll provide the 6-foot high opaque fence on the south. We'll also provide that on our east side. On the south side with the landscaping units, we'll provide approximately 13 2-inch caliper deciduous trees. Per the code, and on the east side, we'll provide about 31 2-inch caliper deciduous trees for our landscaping. Existing trees on site, not disturbed, we'll probably take credit for those as well, and we'll use the current ordinance on how we take credit for those. Our buffer yard, this is a conceptual buffer yard. Buffer yards can be landscaped with deciduous, ornamental, evergreen trees, a different variety of things. You can also see that we've designed our parking lot to the interior of the site, and our playgrounds are to the interior of the site. One other thing I want to show you is you see 2 red lines going up and down. Those are sections that I took through the parking lot, and Brett Avenue is actually lower. If you're standing on Brett Avenue, it's lower on the west than it is to the east. So the way we design these sites, it's a flat building. It'll be flat from west to east. We keep these things flat, and you can see that our parking lot that would be facing east, based on our headlights of our cars, our headlights are going to be at the bottom of the fence due to the cut or the elevation change that we have on this parking lot, or what we have for this site. So again, we're lower on the east, on the west. We keep a flat site. That'll bring those headlights down to about the bottom of the fence. Compatible height and scale methods. You can see this is our building here. We use the rock and the stone on the bottom and the corners of the buildings, draws the eye to the lower levels, and it also stretches it out. We use the smaller elements as gables. We break up the pitch lines. We break up the gables on our buildings. We do not have any rooftop equipment, and their units do not have any single porches or patios. Again, traffic will be generated towards our regional employment centers. This is the 2040 land use map. The big red dots are like magnets. This is what's going to draw our cars from our site. This is where people go to work, where to shop, where to play. So again, we believe our traffic will be drawn north out of the site, as well as we'll have the improvements of 85th Street, which will be improved to a 4-lane road with a median island. You can see, based on the capital improvement plans, that will happen in 2018, Tallgrass 2019, and the interchange after that. In conclusion, I'd like to say that this application satisfies, and the mayor has given me a wink with his eye, and I'd just like to say this is how we believe we satisfy these requirements with our site plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Bonnie Mogan with Costello Companies, 7409 South Bitterroot Place. Excuse me. Costello Companies is requesting approval of the rezone application on the 5-acre parcel located at West 85th Street and Brett Avenue. This parcel is currently zoned Ag, and the request is to rezone it to RA2. A preliminary site plan has been prepared, including 3 apartment buildings consisting of a total of 96 units, or 32 units per building. Delivering affordable workforce housing requires moderate density, or the RA2 zoning. The 5-acre parcel was purchased by Costello Investments in 2004, and it has always been for the purpose of developing affordable workforce housing at this site. The reason that the parcel has not yet been developed with apartments is that the streets and utilities were not completed to the site until 2015. Brett Avenue is a major collector street and was completed from 88th Street north to 85th Street in 2015. West 85th Street is now currently paved with asphalt from Louise Avenue west to Brett Avenue. 85th Street is a limited access arterial street. The full street improvements from Louise Avenue to Tallgrass, including a 4-lane street with a median and a lighted intersection at Brett and 85th, are scheduled for 2018. As 85th Street further develops to the west in the next several years to include the I-29 overpass and the on-off ramps, this area of Sioux Falls will grow with retail and commercial businesses, providing hundreds of employment opportunities. The Costello apartment complex will provide workforce housing for 96 of those individuals and families. The City Planning Department has reviewed the site and the preliminary plan and has recommended approval. The RA2 zoning meets the city's comprehensive plan. Last Thursday, March 2nd, neighbors were invited to our Chasing Willows apartment complex on the east side of Sioux Falls to view a comparable project developed, constructed, and managed by Costello Properties. There were approximately 20 neighbors in attendance. The Chasing Willows Apartments complex is very similar to the one that we are proposing at 85th and Brett. Costello Companies has agreed to increase the south buffer from the required 15 feet up to 40 feet and increase the fence height from the required 4 foot to 6 foot on both the south and the east property lines. And this is included on our preliminary site plan. We have also reduced the number of allowable units in an RA2 zoning from 48 units per building or 144 units down to 96 units in the complex. Please approve our request to RA2 on this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Well, very good. Thank you very much. Okay. Folks, get ready. I don't want to leave you hanging here. So if you want to speak, just come on up and get ready to go. Thank you very much. Welcome, sir. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, please. My name is Eric Odlin. I live on 84th Street on the north side of the land that we're talking about today. I'm part of a large group of the neighborhood that is represented here tonight. Out of respect for your time, we've worked to ensure that our presentation is as concise as possible while ensuring that all voices are heard.
Thank you, Eric.
We will, yes. We'll have 5 additional neighbors speaking, to this PowerPoint. That said, there's going to be a lot of people in attendance currently that are opposed to this rezoning that may not be voicing some concerns tonight. At this time, I'd like to ask that those people stand to be recognized.
Thank you.
I'd like to spend just a few minutes real quickly to discuss the history of this concern and how we ended up here. One more. Okay. I'm going to skip ahead here, I guess. Since the beginning of 2014, the City Council has approved 173 rezoning-related matters. I went through every single one of those over the last few weeks, and actually now that number is 178 after the 5 previous readings. Of those, the City Council did not approve one rezone that failed in the Planning Commission. 176, with the live data tonight, 176 of those approvals came to the City Council with a unanimous vote of support from the Planning Commission. The only two that were not unanimous votes were votes of 7-1 and 6-2 in support. Tonight's vote will have been preceded with a previously failed vote in the City Council in 2015, where some of the mentions were too close to single-family homes or did not have a proper transitions were mentioned. It was also preceded with a motion to defer by the Planning Commission in 2016, and a failed vote in the Planning Commission just a few weeks ago. During that, there was not, again, it was mentioned that there was not proper transition, and it was too abrupt of a change. If the City Council and the City of Sioux Falls expects us to consider the Planning Commission the experts in these matters, tonight's vote should be pretty straightforward. I'd hope that we can all agree that at a minimum, there are too many concerns to approve this rezone. Quickly, I want to touch on the second slide. This entire area was planned for single family under 2015 comprehensive, under the 2015 comprehensive plan. And I'm going to just breeze through these real quick. Early 2000 property to the south was already being developed for single family homes. In 2004, at that time, the developer bought the property. At this time, the land that is just adjacent to and existing is planned for single family homes. In 2009, most of the surrounding homes were built, and it was in 2009 the property was also that's being discussed was annexed. In 2015, after a December City Council meeting, the developer approached neighbors east regarding a possible office rezoning. This will be discussed further here in just a few minutes. And then nothing further until the petition to rezone. 5 days ago, the developer hosted a meeting that was mentioned earlier after the first reading, and at that time, he advised the neighbors he was not willing to consider less than the RA2 zoning. We've worked to try to compromise in that, and we haven't gotten there either. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it to the next speaker, but thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Amy McEwen, and my address is 47157 85th Street. I'm to the east of the petition property. My family moved there in September of 1996, so I've been there a little over 20 years. The petition property, there was a family living there when we moved in, so we assumed it was, a single-family acreage also. And as he said, it's been growing out there. The Reefs next door to me, they purchased their home in 2004, and both of us have been listed on this petition as NA. And we're not really sure why. We proactively contacted the city in November of 2015 concerning annexing into the city. We met with Mr. Jason Bieber and Mr. Jeff Schmidt. They came to the conclusion that the city was not ready for us to annex in because there was no water and sewer, and still isn't no water sewer available to us. He informed us, though, that we would be city-initiated annexing in 2018. So we're just, waiting. He followed up with an email to us on this information, and then also we had asked information on the taxes, and he had said he looked into it and said our taxes would increase 15 to 22%. So kind of in our favor not to annex in right away, but we know it's coming. We met with Mr. Costello after his petition was denied in December of 2015, and he asked what would it take to get on board with this apartments, and we said right up front we just don't think it's a good transition. And then he said, what about office buildings? And we said, okay, we could do with that. And then later on, then we get the letters from the city saying that's petition to rezone again to RA2. So then he met with us again and said he just couldn't make office buildings work. And again, Vicki and I were the NAs of this petition, were the only ones invited to his office. Back in the meeting of February 1st of this year, one of Costello's spokespersons talked concerning the architecture in the apartments, and he made a statement about my property saying that he doesn't really matter when we get zoned in, what we get zoned into, because his building will already exist. Well, I've already exist there as a family home. I've raised my children there, and I'm looking forward to bringing my grandchildren there. We've watched this area grow, and we've welcomed the growth with single family. The arterial road that's coming down, that's going to take the front of our lawns, already. So then you put apartments to the west of me, that's going to just destroy my privacy and how I've lived there for 20 years. These parking lots, they're going to hold 156 cars, 2 parking lots, and 3 playgrounds that are going to be within feet of my property. And now they say they're going to put up a 4 or 6-foot fence, but before it was only a 4-foot. And they actually, if they get the zoning, they just have to go by zoning requirements, I think. And the existing trees that they're talking about got hit with the ice storm in 2013, and a lot of them are dead. And actually, I'm concerned with some of them because they butt up to my property. That one's right over my garage that could fall any day with this wind going on. And they don't make a good buffer when in the wintertime, in the 7 months of winter, because there's no leaves on them. The lights in the parking lots, and I know they say they won't cross over into the property how they set it up, but I just can't visualize that with them being right by my home. That I think my whole property is going to be lit up, and I think the noise from the cars, it's just going to be unbearable. It's going to be uncomfortable to be in my backyard. I'm almost done. So we would just like you to consider zoning it to either single family or twin homes. And we know there are across the street, they're putting in single family without basements. So we know it can be done, and that would be a good thing for that area. Because then with single family or twin homes, it'd be less people for us, and it'd make it more of a neighborhood atmosphere and a better transition for us. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
Amy, thank you as well.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Vicki Reef. My husband, Mark Reef, and my family live at 47159 85th Street next to Amy. We are the additional rural property there. First, in case I get the wink, I just want to thank all of you for being here and for listening to us, as we know that you guys do have a really difficult job, and we also know that there's somewhere else that many would probably rather be right now. So we do appreciate it. We have lived here since October of 2004. I retired from the Army Nurse Corps, and we wanted to find a place to live where, after having to move every 2 to 4 years, we did not want to have to move again. We looked for a long time until we found this country acreage, 3 acres that was surrounded with bean fields, cornfields, and we have our own barn and silo in our yard. But as I said to those of you that were here in December of 2015, we did not buy this property with our head buried in the sand. We met with Jeff Schmidt with the Planning and Zoning Committee and just asked, what is the future of Sioux Falls? And at that time, we were told that there was nothing for development in the 15-year plan for our area. I wish that we would have been told differently. We probably would have still purchased the property because we loved it, but we wouldn't have invested everything into it like we have. We've invested our energy, our finances, and our hearts into this home because we are not going anywhere. This is our home. We have built on to our home. We've remodeled it. We've added a mother-in-law cottage. We've added a big Morton building, which Jeff was very instrumental in helping us get approval for all of this. Never did we ever dream something like this would happen. Mr. Castillo bought his land in 2004 and states that he has documentation to prove that he was informed at that time that this would be a very busy commercialized area that he could build apartments on. So I don't know who's got the right story or who's telling the truth here, but I don't know why it has to be a win or lose. I don't know why there can't be some type of compromise between our single-family home and they're wanting to build this massive apartment complex next door to us and not even giving us any condition of any type of buffer other than what's mandated, which is the 15-foot buffer. I think that it should be something, there should be some type of compromise. What Costello's company is portraying to social media is how this is fulfilling such a need for Sioux Falls for low-income housing, which will not only benefit the people that will get to live here, but also all the employers that need employees, which is a fact that none of us will argue. But what is not portrayed is at the cost to who? The cost to the single-family homes and our families, which is only being allowed 10 to 15 feet from the property line to have these big apartment buildings. What also is not portrayed or that no one knows is that Mr. Costello owns other land that would be much more suitable for development of this sort, that would still meet those needs of Sioux Falls, but wouldn't have the impact that it will on us and our neighborhood. We do not have any other options. This is where we live, this is our home, and like I said, we are not going anywhere. Remembering that we are zoned agriculture, I hope you realize that this is too abrupt of a change to potentially look out our windows to these towering apartment buildings, whether it's low income or high income, or if the Pope decides to live there. We will be made to feel helpless in our own homes to escape the environmental impact that this will thrust upon us. We do not want to have the noise or the parking lots, the noise of the parking lots with the engines running in the winters with the auto start, the bass of the radios blaring, and the noise of the AC units running in the summer. We would not be able to escape the coming and going of the car lights and of the property's lights that are there for safety and convenience. These will beam into our homes, into our kitchens, into our bedrooms, and into our family spaces. Our homes are our sanctuaries. When we bought these, we thought that it came with some zoning ordinances that would continue to protect our investment and our privacy, instead of this 3-story apartment building looking down into our backyard, making us feel like we live in a fishbowl. In 2000, a book was published by R.D. Putman called Bowling Alone: The Collapse and Revival of the American Community. And this book suggests that suburban living has contributed to a decline in social engagement and in the epidemic of obesity. The thought that is if we could squeeze population into high-density areas, it would promote greater physical activity and make an impact on obesity. This book has spurred much debate and found that there are many topics that needed to be researched. Since its publication, 4 million people have been studied across the world, and it has been found that not only are the suburbs not responsible for our obesity epidemic, but that increasing density in neighborhoods has been found to be associated with health issues.
Vicki, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jason Bosley, and good evening. Thank you for taking this time to allow myself and my neighbors to voice our concerns about the proposed zoning change at 85th and Brett. I have lived in Sioux Falls since 1989, pursued an undergrad and graduate degree, and ultimately decided to stay and raise my family in Sioux Falls because I believe in the quality of life that it provides for my family. This neighborhood has many families with small children, and I personally am a father of 2 under the age of 5, and as such have the following concerns that I'd like you to consider before making your decision. The first being RA2 density concerns as it relates to street traffic, lights, and noise. It would be preferred if the street access to 85th instead of Brett, but understand that it is not available under the proposed development. Brett directly leads to a school and is currently, with its 5 entrances onto Brett, are proposed to accommodate the high density volume of traffic would lead to increased traffic across sidewalks and in general traffic in and around the area where small children under the age of 10 are biking and walking. There is concern also that this would increase traffic on 88th Street, in which I live. I know most of you would believe that those occupying the building would take 85th, but during constructions of the twin homes recently, they took 88th with their dump trucks and heavy equipment. If there is a backup of traffic on 85th and the Brett, people will choose a path of least resistance and use 88th to reach other arterial streets. The second point that I like to make is buffering for aesthetics and sightline. We understand and support Sioux Falls development needs and as it means for economic growth and employment demands. And as such, we are not opposed to multifamily housing, but instead of a 3-story or multi-story apartment complex, we would prefer a home or twin homes like those being developed across the street and match the current aesthetics and sightlines of the neighborhood. Recently, Costello held a meeting, and we were optimistic that we'd be able to have an open dialogue concerning these and negotiate, as other neighbors have been, to be able to do with developers that are proposing developments in the area. After our time with them, it was clear that Costello was going to stick with our core competency of building apartments and had no interest in a larger compromise. It is our understanding that this land was originally purchased for $100,000, which would calculate out to about 43 cents per square foot of land price. In today's land market, a multifamily housing is going for $1.75 to $3.50 per square foot. So there is room for Costello to make a return on their investment, but still allow for a compromise. We have made suggestions to Costello to consider twin homes, splitting the land and doing a mix of twin homes and apartments, or even office space to allow for a transition, but they are not interested in considering our suggestions. Costello believes that the small considerations which they have made are not enough to address our concerns and are enough to be able to add, or they always add that they're a quick caveat that these are subject to change and they may not be implemented. Many of the points of concerns that I have brought before you today can be debated by the other side, saying that they don't have a crystal ball or can't predict the future. But these are based on months of research, direct discussions with experts, based on a human understanding and psychology, our own experience of having lived in an apartment, and ultimately common sense. In conclusion, the Planning Commission and City has done a great job of considering buffering in the past, and I implore you to consider the lack of transition in this zoning request. We knew that the risk of building next to land that was zoned agriculture, but it was a calculated risk that the city had the city would allow previously transitions from existing single-family homes to either RA1, RD1, or 2, twin families, or low-density multifamily homes before considering RA2. Allowing the zoning changes would set a new precedence for others facing abrupt zoning changes, as this one meets with relation to zoning compatibility matrix. Thank you for listening to my concerns. As I mentioned before, the city has done a great job of zoning with respect to transitions, and I ask and implore the city to deny this request and to allow us to work with Costello with your help on a compromise. We trust that you will take this into consideration as an established neighborhood has come before you today concerning our investments in our home and, more importantly, our family.
Jason, thank you. Appreciate it. And folks, I know there's some other people who want to chat. Done a really good job. There's not been a lot of duplication. More and more as we're going on. I don't want to go through all the points that have been made because there have been some good ones. Okay, but I would ask you, as you're coming up, if you could find unique things, other items that the council's not heard about. I think that would really help your cause even more. But again, welcome. Come forward. Anybody else interested in speaking? Welcome, sir. Good to have you here.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Schauer. I live at 4112 West 88th Street. I'm directly south of the proposed apartment complex. A couple weeks ago, we had a public meeting in our neighborhood and invited the entire council out. Several could not make it, a few could, and they seen firsthand why we were so concerned about this property being built there. For those of you that weren't there, I just kind of wanted to go over a couple quick pictures just to give you an idea of what they seen and what why we're so concerned. So this first picture here is a picture taken from the north looking south at the backyards of one of my neighbors who's not here this evening. As you can see, the 40 feet is marked out there. This is the same house, and Angie had taken a picture from her patio to the north, and her husband is standing out in the field at the 40-foot mark, just to kind of give you a visual on how close that building will be. This is the backyard of Matt's house. He lives directly east of the previous house we looked at. As you can see, a lot of these houses have smaller backyards. The reason that is these are not your typical entry-level homes, your starter homes. These are homes that we've spent a lot of money and time and invested in them. And so it, you know, they're a lot of times they're compared to starter homes where some of these other projects are in town, and it's kind of it's not relevant to what our situation is. Here's a picture taken from the west side, looking to the east. So these are all the houses on the south side whose backyard butts up to the proposed apartment complex. If you look closely, you can see a orange planning flag or kind of a poster there sitting up in the middle of the yard. That's approximately at the 40 feet, which is where the apartment complex will sit. Now, if you go to the next picture, imagine this complex sitting where that red flag is. It's a 45-foot structure that will basically tower over our houses. The one issue we're having with this is if this does get approved for rezoning of RA2, the developer could build 48-unit apartment complexes instead of 32. There's nothing, the doors are wide open for him. He doesn't have to stick to 32, making 96 total apartments. He could, if he wanted to, put 48 in there, equaling 144 total apartment units, which we feel is really unfair and uncharacteristic of how the rest of the landscape of the city is. Another issue that we're having is at pretty much all the council meetings and the planning meetings and the council meetings, new projects are getting brought up that are supposed to be similar to what they're proposed behind our houses. When these projects come up, as soon as I can, the next day, the following day, I drive to every one of these. I don't look them up on Bing. I don't look them up on Google Maps. I go to them in person. I take pictures. I do measurements. I do everything I can to just justify why we are so concerned about this. There's very, very few that have single homes, even on one side of the apartment complex, not 3 as we have. Many of the bordering single-family homes are low density, such as twin homes, which is what we're proposing here behind us. All but one with garages and not 156 parking spots. This is a property where we did meet with Costello last week. And the building, yes, the building is what they are proposed to build at 85th and Brett. However, the transition is completely different. To the south, you have townhomes, I believe, townhomes or apartments. To the west, you have more apartments. To the east, you have at least a 200-yard buffer that's divided by several trees, actually a big section of trees, and then there's also a drop in elevation, which has a little swampy area there. So you got 200 yards of buffer space there. To the north, you can see that there's undeveloped land, plots of single-family homes. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and none of them are being built on. I don't know if it's because no one wants to live behind the apartment complex or if they just haven't sold. The rest of the surrounding area is all developing, but this is staying vacant. And I think the one point we have is the individuals that end up buying these lots, it's a decision they have to make and they have to deal with. They have no ground to stand on like we have. We were here first, and we don't really have we're just kind of getting this pushed onto us. The last thing is, at the meeting the other night, I asked Costello if there was any references in Sioux Falls that I could go visit so I could get an actual visual. A 3-story apartment complex, 40 feet behind single-family homes. I wanted to go see it. And her response was no, there is not one. Thank you.
Nathan, thank you. And councilors, the last 2 speakers, I've had them go over quite a bit. But again, it's been pretty unique. So come forward, please.
Troy Hokeness, 7621 South Afton Avenue. I live directly north of the proposed development. And I just want to, I know a lot of discussion has been made about the transition, so I think that's an obvious statement we're trying to make tonight. But I just want to kind of remind the council members and Mayor Huther the compatibility chart that was presented at the Shape Places 2035 comprehensive plan. And just kind of, hopefully everybody on the council took some time to view the past two zoning meetings as well as the 12/1/2015 city council meeting. It was where you guys had initially had this conversation. And just want to make some points that were brought out at that meeting. When you look at, there was a lot of dialogue between several of you council members regarding the pretty high density, zero transition from RA2 to single family, as well as different points made of, you know, at the expense of the existing property owners, it seems like we are settling for, you know, a level 3 on the compatibility chart with no transition. You know, is that the standard that we're trying to set as a city of Sioux Falls? So just to remind people, you know, in the audience as well as on the council, what this chart means is my interpretation of it is the proposed zoning is surrounded by 3 sides of single family, and each side is a 3 on the compatibility chart. And so if we're settling for a 3, is that a standard that we're putting out there for future developments? Whereas as a citizen of Sioux Falls, and I think many people can agree as neighbors, why aren't we looking at a 4 or a 5 on this chart? So when you look at the density, the proposed zone is a level 3, and so that's 12 plus units per acre. So that's 60 plus units, and they're at 96 units. So if we're looking at how can we compromise, how can we look at a better transition, we should be looking at a level 4 or even 5 to be optimal. We are realistic neighbors, and so again, if we can meet halfway in the middle, I think a level 4 would be very compromisable. When you look at the density, so a level 4 is that 6 to 12 units. So RD1, RD2, perhaps even RA1 would be a compromise. And so your decision tonight's based on a zoning matter that's in front of you, and we just ask that you consider that. And so what is reasonable when we, I think we've hammered this a few times already tonight, so when you look at a typical transition from single family homes, you look at RD1, RD2 as the natural progression to the right there of twin homes, townhomes, up to an 8-plex, I believe is the zoning terminology, and then to an RA1, which is a lower density apartment, 2 stories, up to 24 units. And then you see the RA2 after that, and then RA3, commercial, et cetera, down the list. So we just ask, I was involved a couple years ago in the discussion with the developer to the north, which was Mike Runge. Jim Dunham was representing Mike Runge, as well as select builders Sam Whiff and Brian Woolman. And I guess real short is, you know, we came to a compromise on the north side of 85th there. It was originally zoned ag, rezoned to single family, sat empty for several years during the crash of the real estate market, you know, countrywide, and then it was zoned into RA1 / single family. So on the west side of Beale, it was RA1 zoned, and on the east side of Beale, they kept single family adjacent to the single family to the east. So we just look at that as a proper transition when you look at single family to more dense units when it comes to RA1, RA2. Thank you for your time, and appreciate your consideration in this matter.
Thank you, Troy.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilors. Trent Swanson, I'm an attorney at 100 North Phillips here in Sioux Falls. The neighbors have just asked that I look at some of the zoning ordinances and the comprehensive plan and just go through those. And so I just have a few comments tonight. I know you've heard a lot about transitions, and you know that's what this is all about, is proper transitioning. And the first step, obviously, before you get to that is whether the future land use map, so our 2035, now you updated it last fall, it's the 2040 future land use map. Jeff presented a copy of that earlier tonight. And the question is whether this proposed zoning fits within that area. So at the 85th and I-29 interchange, we have a regional zoning district, so that's the most intense commercial development in Sioux Falls, the highest density uses. In 2013, the end of 2013, the land at 85th and Tallgrass was changed from a neighborhood employment center to a community employment center. What that did is it increased the amount of commercial that could go there. It also pushed the access points from the 660 feet that you would typically find on that map on the left, it pushed those to the east. So right now we have a community center at 85th and Tallgrass. So that's our future land use map. So if you go half a mile to the east, which is what Brett Avenue is, if you look at that map on the right side of the screen, and this came from a different presentation that was presented here a few years ago, a couple years ago at staff, at the council meeting. So that's where this came from. I pulled it from a prior staff presentation. But if you go to that half mile point, you'll see what it shows is your most intense use obviously is at that arterial intersection. It goes from that commercial intensity to the transitional area, which is office and high density residential, down to the least intense residential use. So that's what the, again, at the corner of 85th and Tallgrass, that's what your future land use map shows for the employment center. When that property was rezoned at 85th and Tallgrass, they showed that it was transitioning. Again, I don't want to beat the transitioning, but they stepped down. So you step down from that commercial intense development that it shows on the right side there. It stepped down from that office, higher density residential, moderate density, multifamily. Multifamily is considered three or more units in a structure. So it stepped down until you get to the single family residential areas. I gave you a packet. I'm not going to go through all that. If you guys want to look at it, I pulled some language out of the future land use, the comprehensive plan, future land use map. I pulled some provisions out of our zoning ordinance. I just want to highlight, the regulations, our zoning regulations are intended to protect existing property uses and values against adverse or unharmonious adjacent uses. It says single-family homes are provided maximum protection from intrusions, including higher density residential uses. It talks about our districts. We have the districts, so we've got the RS, the RD1, RD2, RT. It says those should step down. So I gave you the forms. Again, as was mentioned tonight, the proposal in front of you this evening is RA2. So RA2, it was mentioned before, it could go 45 feet, 3 stories tall. So this form is what you're considering tonight, is this MD2 form is for the RA2 zoning. Apologize, Mayor, I just want to make sure I'm trying to cover things that hadn't been hit before here. I know someone mentioned before that Costello has land, the developer here has land nearby. The developer has 5 acres here. They're trying to maximize the use. I respect that. I think the only point that was made there is that they've got some other land in the near vicinity that would provide for better transitions if they chose to do this development there. I gave you a couple examples of language that the staff has come up with before when it talks about proper transitioning. Again, we went through some of that before, so I'm not going to cover that again.
Trent, I'm just going to give you folks some good advice here. You have done a tremendous job last week and this week. You've covered the same topics multiple times. You've done it eloquently. You've been prepared. But you're covering the same topics over and over.
That's where I was going to just finish up right now to jump to
You
my
are.
bottom, and I'm the last speaker, Mr. Mayor. So we had 7, so at least I'm the last speaker that I'm aware of.
I'm just trying to help you. There's
No, I
reaches of law,
appreciate that.
diminishing returns, and then you go from being really effective to not as effective as you want to be. Been doing this for 7 years, and I'm just trying to coach you a little bit here. So, Trent, go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, so my request on behalf of the neighbors, if the council would please decline this, reaffirm what you've done in the past. If you have any questions, either for me now or as you do your deliberations, please feel free to ask me or any other neighbors. Thank you.
Trent, thank you. Great job. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I am Joan Franken, Managing Director for Costello Companies, located at 7409 South Bitterroot Place in Sioux Falls. A couple of things I would like to address is, first of all, Costello Companies. What do? We are in the multifamily apartment industry. That is what we do, and we have been in this industry for over 40 years. We specialize in developing affordable housing, specifically affordable workforce housing. Prior to purchasing this land parcel in 2004, we did our research on this. We too called down to Jeff Schmidt at the city and to Steve Metley. We do not purchase 5-acre parcels for developing single-family or twin homes. And we also did our research and knew that 85th was going to be a major arterial street, and going west would be the next major employment center for the city of Sioux Falls. So we purchased this 5-acre parcel of land for the purpose of developing an affordable housing complex on these 5 acres. When 85th would be completed going by it, and when the collector street, which is now complete, Brett Avenue, would be in, so that we had the infrastructure and utilities there. We have a letter from 2004 from Steve Metley in support of this as a multifamily apartment complex. And I would be willing to leave that here with you tonight. But to say that this was going to be developed or used for some other use, that is not the case, and that is not what we do. What's been talked about in the news and what is critical to the city of Sioux Falls is workforce development. And with that, hand in hand goes workforce affordable housing, and that is what we develop. When we came in 2015 in front of the Planning Commission, it was unanimously approved, and then it went to the City Council. And the City Council wanted to see more of a plan. So we came up with a site plan, and it has the site plan that you see in front of you now, which has changed. We came up with a site plan to show what our plan would be. We develop and build this beautiful, it's 3-story apartment complex, and this is the plan that we came up with. So in that also, we knew that the Shape Places plan, because we had the 3 single-family homes on the south, that we needed to mitigate that. That is what the Shape Places plan does. It gives you the opportunity to mitigate the transitions. So between the single-family homes on the south, we agreed to the 40-foot setback instead of the 15-foot setback. To the west, it's RA2. It's also zoned RA2. To the north, that is the arterial street. That is the buffer. And to the west, then, are the 2 acreages that have not been annexed into the city yet. We have compromised. We have made concessions. Again, the 40-foot yard setback. Damien, Jeff, they've gone over how we have compromised. If we have this site zoned at a lesser density, we run the risk of not being able to provide the affordable units that we have planned for this site. Some of the things that the neighbors and what we discussed the lighting. We've heard comments being made about the noise. These are the tenants' homes. This is their home, and they also want to have quiet enjoyment of their homes. We also have some minutes from the meetings that we had with the 2 neighbors back in 2016. Some of their concerns were being garbage thrown over the fence, even if we would put up a 6-foot-high fence. Other concerns were, will we have an on-site manager there for our units? Yes, we would. We tried to address some of those concerns, but at the same time, they wanted to stay single-family or twin homes, or also asked if we'd be willing to have it be a city park or a dog park. We develop multi-family housing units. other locations, and this is just a short list, I will say. I've got a list of 14 other locations where there are 3-story or RA2 zoned apartment complexes with single family adjacent to those. That is just a short list. And then also the one that was approved earlier by you tonight. In that, I respectfully request that you approve this rezoning request from from agricultural to RA2. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff. My name's Jeff Nelson. I'm a real estate agent here in Sioux Falls. And this issue is about Sioux Falls. And it's about transition. It's a transition of a city. Transition of growth and development, workforce jobs along 85th Street in the future. And it's about a housing issue. It's about affordable housing issues. I started in the business in 1977. There were 77,000 people in Sioux Falls. Today, 40 years later, there's 177,000 people. That's an average of 2,500 per year, and that's about the average that we had over that course of time. There's a study out, I can't name it right now, but I could find it for you. It says for every 2.5 people that come to a community, you need 1,000, you need one new housing unit. With 2,500 people, that means we need 1,000 new housing units a year. Not resale, new units. Last year, I read in the paper 5,000 people came to Sioux Falls, which would tell us we needed 2,000 housing units. And with the average price of about $190,000 for a home in Sioux Falls, that's reached for many people that are employed here or that would come here, unaffordability. We've gone from 71% of the United States homeowners, or 71% of the people in the United States being homeowners, sometime in right at 2000, to about 61% at this point in time, and it will go less than that because of affordability. Today's young people maybe don't have the options of being able to buy the house that some of us bought when we started out. Their options are going to be rentals. And we need more and more. And as you drive around the city, on the outskirts of the city, you see more and more rentals that are being put up. Not very many are affordable housing. So these affordable housing units become necessity. Your decision tonight is not an easy decision. It affects several people. But the decision you'll make tonight could also affect thousands of people over the next 10 to 15 years in this community. Whether the needed workforce will be able to be found or come to Sioux Falls will be based on affordability of housing, because they're not going to come without that housing. And these new residents that will come to work in Sioux Falls want some of the very same things I wanted 40-some years ago, or that you wanted when you purchased a home, if you have. They want clean, safe, crime-free, stable housing. But more importantly than that, they want a home. And I will submit to you that these apartments will be their home. And along with this being their home, they're going to have a quality of life that they want. They want to be neighbors. And they want dignity. They want the kind of housing that can afford them the dignity. When they walk out, they feel proud about where they live. Things all of us want. They want to be able to have their children go to good schools. Things all of us want. They want the neighbor kids to be able to come and play in their playground, things all of us want. This is about creating neighborhoods, and this is about creating dignity for all the people coming to Sioux Falls. It's a hard decision, I know. It's a tough vote. But I would ask you to vote for affordable housing. You set the stage tonight for what will happen all across this city over the next several months and the next several years on where housing will be. Allow the people that are coming to Sioux Falls that want to work here to make sure that they have the availability of having, while not being a home, not being a house, their home can be a unit like one of these. Thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Folks, I want to thank you for your comments tonight. Very well prepared, very eloquent, and productive. But now I'm going to move to the council. Councilors' comments. Councilor Neisert.
In the spirit of getting the conversation started, I'm going to make a motion to approve with the condition that the south setback shall be a minimum of 40 feet.
Second.
It's been a motion to approve this item with a condition, and it has been seconded as well. Discussion. Councilor Neisert.
Sure, I'll go first. This has been a really, really tough one. I've probably overanalyzed this one. When you have this much opposition, you spend a lot of time because you just feel that moral obligation that you really need to. But really it comes down to me, do apartments, can they coexist with single family, and are apartments residential or not? Let's be honest, they do present a potential incompatibility. The question is, have they minimized it with their project design? So I've looked at the negative effects. The first one is height. That's been talked about a lot. They can do 3 stories or 45 feet. They have, I think, 8-foot ceilings on the first 2 floors, and then 9 foot on the upper floor, the 3rd floor. So I think they net somewhere in the 33 to 35 foot, somewhere in that ballpark of their total height, which is the same height as a single family house. So really, the 45 foot really only comes into play if you're going to do a very tall ceilings, like a high-end development or maybe a big common room. So it's on par with a single family. And then the 40-foot setback does help to minimize that kind of look. The traffic, we've talked about that. The intersections of an arterial and a collector. I mean, the roads are designed to carry this. That is what goes there. Is it possible somebody would go south and then east? Of course. I mean, that's possible. But the vast majority of people are going to go to that arterial. The parking is on the interior. They're required to have a fence to block the east to the rural lots. You can't shine light off of there. The next one is lighting. Going out and visiting the site. Well, first of all, you can't light trespass. That's first of all. But when you look at this, for example, looking to the south, the only thing they have is they have an extra door on the south because you have to have 2 doors for fire. And they only have a light essentially 6 feet up, kind of at the same sort of sconce that you'd have on your deck. The number of units, they've been clear about that, the 32 by 3. They've pledged that. The other thing is when you look at it, they can't go any higher. They can't add another story. They're hemmed in on the south with the 40-foot setback. They're hemmed in on the west with the 25-foot yard. So there's not a whole lot of direction they could go. I mean, maybe they could squeeze a few more in there, but they still got to get in place. They got drainage on the north. So I guess the big thing that comes down to me is, again, are apartments residential? The answer is yes. Can they coexist near single family? Yes, they do all over the city. And my biggest thing is, if not here, where? And if we're going to disqualify every location that's near single family and require an apartment be built in a cornfield, we're in deep trouble. So I've thought a lot about it, but I'm going to support this.
Any other discussion, Council? Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is a tough one. We've had no shortage of tough issues since we've been on the job here, and this is another one. These folks are my neighbors. They're about a minute from me. I sympathize with their dilemma here. They're good people. They've had good arguments. They've had us into their home. They have genuine concerns. I, along with others, have studied this for hours. We've been to meetings again with the neighborhood with Costello. And again, we've heard their concerns, and the main thing to me was to hear what were the main concerns, how are they being addressed. To me, if this was a fly-by-night development with a shaky plan and no track record, I'd be very hesitant. But Costello has a reputation and a track record for building a quality product. They effectively manage them. They're known as being good neighbors. I think they've made an attempt to address some of the issues here. I think what it comes down to is it's a good argument for those in that neighborhood. Again, I'm close to it. I can sympathize, but it comes down to those two issues we talk about. Everybody talks a good game in this city. We need workforce development. We need affordable housing, but then it comes up and nobody really wants it around them. So what do we do? And to me, I think it's just an issue where it's kind of, when I've looked at both sides, their arguments, who's addressed what, and how does it come out, what's the best way to move forward. It's tough, it really is tough, but we do need this affordable housing and workforce development. I've done the best I can. But it's hard to vote against something that addresses those two issues, and I know it's inconvenient for some of those here, and that's disappointing to me as well, but just so we know, we've worked hard to try to come to a conclusion tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilor Seeley?
Well, first of all, let me say that we had about 55 minutes of public input tonight. I'd be willing to sit here for 3 hours if we needed to let both sides have their say in this, because that's really what good government is about. What's disturbing to me is when I hear homeowners say that they were told that there wasn't going to be that, an apartment type of a situation next to them. People buying property are told that they will be able to put that in. I think there's been a miscommunication, and people are building and buying in good faith. I want to protect neighborhoods. I understand that we need to have affordable housing, but I have a respect for the existing people and their quality of life as well. So I think there's some things, there's still some questions and some problematic things in my mind.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
No.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That is passed 7-1. Item number 30.
Item number 30 is to set a date of hearing and second reading to Tuesday, March 14th, 2017 at 7 p.m. for first reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 95, Parks and Recreation Subchapter Fees.
Good evening, Council,
Welcome.
Mayor. Alicia Luther, Recreation Manager with Parks and Recreation. I'm here this evening to visit with you about some adjustments that we want to make to our current fee ordinance that we have in effect. And so with that, what I will start with is our overview. So tonight, what I want to let you know is that we are not proposing any changes to the fees that are currently in the ordinance. What we are proposing is to adjust some of the things that are currently in the ordinance, more housekeeping type items, just to make things more customer friendly and address some issues that we've heard as we've been living the facility at Midco for a little while and selling the new passes under the new rate structure. So what we'll be talking about is some definition changes or additions for those items that are currently not in the ordinance under definitions, and then also adding an annual veterans pass to our ordinance. So with that, the first definition that we would like to adjust in the ordinance definitions would be the annual aquatic season. Currently, how that is written, it says shall be effective from May 1 through April 30th of each year and include Midco Aquatic Center, outdoor aquatic centers, and outdoor swimming pools. How we want to adjust that is that we would like that pass to be good from the date of purchase for one 12-month period. We've been hearing from the public as they come in to buy passes that this would be more convenient for them. Currently, with our current fee structure that we have, I think that we all thought that we covered all bases with it and that there was never going to be a lull time that wouldn't work out for people. And what we found is that now that we're living it, from about January through April, it's a little difficult for people to find a pass that works the best for them. The fall, winter, spring one maybe it isn't offering the best value at this point, and buying an annual now that'll expire in April doesn't seem to be the best value either. So with that being said, we really think that this change will be conducive and allow for people to find that pass that works the best for them and have an all-year pass. In addition, what we'd like to do is add a veteran definition. Currently, there is not a definition in our ordinance that describes what a veteran is, and so what we're proposing is an individual who has or is currently serving the United States military and must provide documentation of service such as a military ID. Again, this is one that we're missing. We just want to add that in. In addition, as we've been living the fees, what we have found is that we do have a veterans pass for fall, winter, spring, and we also have one for summer. What we are missing is a veterans pass for an annual season pass. And so what we would propose is that we would add that option to our annual passes as well, so a veteran can get a discounted rate in the fall, winter, spring season, the summer season, and all year. And so that veteran pass would be included, just as it is with the other passes. It would be along with the senior citizen and the reduced income individual adult. So with that, I just wanted to cover the timeline and next steps. We did present these changes and additions to our park board on February 21st, and they did recommend that we bring them forward to council for approval. In addition, I was here last week and I shared this information with you at the informational meeting. And so we're here tonight for the first reading. We'll have the second reading again on March 14th. And then April 7th, we would hope that these adjustments to the ordinance would go into effect. Reason for this timeline is that, again, those passes that we currently have in ordinance will be expiring soon, and we want to make sure that we have these adjustments in place so that people can buy the pass that's best for them versus having to wait.
Alicia, thank you. Appreciate it. Council, would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading to Tuesday, March 14th for this item?
So moved, Rolfing.
Second, Selbring.
It has been seconded. So it's Council Chair Rolfing and seconded by Councilor Selberg. Thank you. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say thank you for bringing this. I know I brought the veterans deal to you, and make these slight improvements and adjustments makes perfect sense, so thank you very much.
Absolutely.
A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 31.
Item 31 is to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, March 14th, 2017 at 7:00 p.m. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota providing supplemental appropriations, engineering and police.
Good evening, Andy Berg, Public Works. I'm speaking on behalf of engineering regarding the supplemental appropriations. The supplemental appropriations for engineering is dealing with our flood control improvements. On the map, you can see the area highlighted with the red leader is the area where we are going to be performing additional structure improvements in 2017. The phases 1, 2, and 3, as they're called out, are phases of the levee system that have already been improved. Brief project history. This project really got kickstarted in 2000. Phases 1, 2, and 3 have been completed. The last phase, 3, being done in 2013. This fall is when we would anticipate construction to begin for this year's project. Total project cost to date has been about $65 million. 75% of that was paid for by the Corps of Engineers through federal dollars. 25% was a local share. The South Dakota DENR was a great partner in this and provided half of that local share, 12.5%. This appropriation that we're hoping to get approved tonight first reading tonight, is $1.125 million of that DENR contribution. Those dollars will go towards the construction of structures A through H this fall. If you didn't hear, today is a big day for the levee system. Today, March 7th, our new firm maps went effective, so that roughly 1,700 properties behind the levee system throughout the city are now out of the floodplain. So it's a really big day and a good coincidence for this presentation. The proposed improvements this fall mainly are around the area below the spillway near Morells, Smithfield. There are structures A through H here. They're identified as areas that need to be improved by the Corps of Engineers during their annual inspections. The total project cost is expected to be about $2.5 million. The remaining funds to come from dollars we have left in our CIP for that project. Quick example of what we're looking at. On the left is an existing structure in very poor shape. It has timbers basically holding the flap gates in place. This is obviously not something the Corps of Engineers feels is a reliable structure. It's one of the worst ones we have left, and that will be replaced with something similar to what's on the right, which has a concrete head wall, a flap gate, and then further up a secondary gate system should the flap gate get dislodged or have a debris hang up in it. So before I pass it on to Chief Burns, is there any questions for me on that?
Yes, Council Chair.
Yes. Where is structure H? I go up to G.
Sure, yes. I didn't waste the space with the map for that one, but that is actually the one in the picture with the timbers around it, and that is out near the fire training facility just west of the airport.
Okay, just was curious as to where it was, as I sometimes miss things.
Chief? Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. Chief Matt Burns of the Police Department. Come before you tonight to discuss a disaster response trailer for animal emergencies. Last fall, we applied for a grant for this trailer because if a disaster occurs, though we have a very well-trained team with good equipment for their daily operations, if we were to have a large-scale disaster that required the care and the dealing with many of the domestic pets across the city, we would be ill-prepared for that. And working with the Humane Society, we did apply for this grant, and it was awarded in the amount of $14,000. We're very pleased for that to occur, and we applaud our animal control team for the forethinking to bring this about. Wrong one, sorry. You can see there that it is a 20-foot trailer, would have an air conditioning unit, electrical and lighting, and then also a small desk in there for the animal control staff to work in the event of an emergency. The intent of the trailer is to store kennels and food and other equipment related to a disaster with a side entry door. Again, this is a revenue neutral appropriation, just bringing in the grant funds. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Andy. Councilors, would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for March 14th?
So moved.
Thank you, Council Vice Chair. Thank you, Council Chair. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 32.
Item 32 is a resolution of intent to enter into a lease of municipal real property.
Andy Berg again with Public Works. This is basically bringing forward the intent to lease a property that the landfill has recently acquired. This fall we came forward with a full list of properties we intended to lease for varying purposes such as farming or haying. This one has been acquired since that was brought forward, so this is basically just bringing forward to do the same thing, to declare the intent to lease it. It will be leased to the same tenant that has been farming it for years out there, and that lease will be signed with the tenant at the date of closing. So the land acquisition is mainly for future improvements and capacity at the landfill, and it is in the northwest corner of their current facility.
Andy, thank you. Did anybody want to speak to this item? Council?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second.
Council Erickson has made a motion to approve this resolution, seconded by Council Vice Chair Kylie. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 33.
Item 33 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Aspen Heights Addition. The Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
This is in the northwest part of town. It's an RD1 zoning at an arterial and a collector street. It's about 16 acres. It's one of the last phases of development to build out this subdivision. Preliminary developments are the lot and block layout and the utilities. It meets all of our intents, and our staff recommendation is for approval.
Thanks, Jeff. Did anybody want to speak to this item? Council?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Selberg.
Then a motion to approve. It has been seconded. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 34.
Item 34 is a resolution including certain contiguous territory within the corporate limits of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, annexation 5806-2016 Murphy Tracks, 48th Street and South Ellis Road.
This is a property on TLS Road. It's 1.8 acres. The property owner lives on this site, and he's the applicant to annex the property in. So it is in our growth area. It does have services available to it.
Getting ahead of yourself.
Sorry. So the applicant is requesting to annex their property into the City of Sioux Falls.
That's okay. Thank you, Jeff. Did anybody want to speak to this item? Welcome.
Harlan Teason, Prairie Meadow Sanitary District.
Yes, sir.
I ask that you do not annex this in. Right now, we got a petition going around trying to get the 75% to annex into the city, that Prairie Meadows District. And it's my understanding, I could be wrong, but I understand that he signed the petition already, but if you annex him in, then we lose that petition for him. You can't use that number. And we're having a hard time getting 75% anyhow.
Okay.
And another thing is, I understand he wants to put up a duplex or multi-homes. Our ordinance always has been that one house, one lot. And so then we got to acquire more legal fees to change our ordinance, which we can't afford. I come late, I don't know the formality here. But anyhow, I thought there was a gentleman earlier when I come, and I just caught the tail end of him, but I thought he was asking for an audit out there. And I'd be more than happy to provide how we're spending our money. One of the big problems is out there is, say like water. If you use 5,000 gallons and 73 homes, that's 325,000 gallons. Well, the city's billing us on our flow meter pretty much $1 million, so we're almost 3 times of what we should be. And so that's where the cost is. But if anybody wants an audit, I'd be more than happy to bring in my bank statements. I was reaching out to Marshall, and I reached out to Rex this last week, and I think even Rex reached out to you, Mayor Mike, but you was out of town, and I reached out to Christine, but I never got no response back. But I'd be happy to show you where we're spending our money and how we're kind of in a financial bind out there. So, but I ask that you don't do that. Annex that part in. If you want to annex in, annex the whole district. And one thing that would help on our financing is that our debt with the city, we owe about $85,000. I'm pretty proud on the fact that we at one time was 138, and we're down to 85 now. But if you could write that off, find it in your heart to write that off, it would really help financially out there. But anybody wants to email me or tell me, wants to meet, sit down and talk how we're doing, I'd be more than happy to. I ain't got nothing to hide.
Thank you, Mr. Thiessen. Appreciate it. See, we've got a motion on this one? No. Would anybody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Chair.
Second, Neitzert.
Thank you, Councilor Neitzert. Councilor Erbenbach?
Question then for Jeff. Talk about that idea that this is part of that whole project that we're trying to get to come in sort of peacefully. Can you speak to what he was talking about in terms of that number?
Mr. Thiessen is the advocate for everything. I mean, everything he said is correct. I mean, we're trying, but at the same time, this is a property owner that wants to do the right thing. He wants to hook up the sanitary sewer. He wants to develop his property. He is a voting member. He voted yes. So do you go, well, now we're not going to annex you in and we're going to wait until you get the 75%?
This petitioner here? Okay.
So,
Okay.
The gentleman's trying to develop his property, and that's what we're basically asking of all of them out there, is to hook up to sanitary sewer. Mr. Teason, he's trying everything to help, and we support him as much as possible too. It's a tough one, but this gentleman is the property owner, and he wants to hook up to sanitary sewer.
Councilor Nicer.
So voluntary is good. The question then is what is he being required to do? Is he having to do, I can't remember, I should know driving by this all the time, but if that portion of 48th is already paved, if there's improvements that he's going to have to make as part of becoming into the city and he's going to have to pay for it, could you just tell us what he's going to have to do if you remember?
As being, first it's just yes or no, annexation. Then he'd be a part of, and then as he develops the property, he'd have to hook up to water and sewer. He wouldn't have assessments onto TLS Road, but any assessments for curb and gutter or streets, sidewalks, as a property owner, he would have to pay for those types of things.
When those come, he'll be assessed because he's a citizen of Sioux Falls, and so he's going to have to pay.
And right now, he's just one home, but again, as Mr. Teason said, if he wants to develop it, is it going to come onto 48th Street, then onto a collector street, he would be assessed the costs, because on a collector street, we charge them the fees.
Sure, and TLS isn't arterial, so he's not assessed. It's
correct.
Yeah,
right now,
that frontage.
That frontage, because he's going onto an arterial, but if he developed it, he'd be developing it on 48th, and then we would charge him the fees, and he understands that, he knows that.
Okay, so he's going in eyes wide open,
Yes.
he's coming in, he's willing to pay.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 35.
Item 35 is a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, those being Affordable Housing Advisory Board, Frank Adams and Annie Broken Leg, Falls Community Health Center Governing Board, Brent Christensen, Public Parking Advisory Board, Dan Johnson and Jennifer Schaefer, Siouxland Heritage Museum Board of Trustees, Kimberly Coblank, Zoological Society of Sioux Falls Board of Directors, John Olson.
Council?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Erickson.
Councilor Brooks made a motion to approve this item, second by Councilor Erickson. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Council, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor. Second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Selberg. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Sioux Falls. Make it a great night.